Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello everybody, my name is Minh and I'm your co-host with Brendon Wolf, and you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Brendon, welcome, how are you?
Good, Minh, how are you? It's good to be back doing another podcast with you.
Mate, pretty soon you'll be doing your own podcast soon, Brendon. My God, you're doing too many podcasts at the moment.
I know.
Hey, I know, it's fun, isn't it, doing podcasts?
It's good. It's good. It's really good.
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying everything on the show.
Thank you.
Now listen, this is another serious podcast. We're doing a follow-up, part 2 of the Disability Royal Commission. Now, you did a podcast with Dhanika in our office, which was published last week.
Yes.
Early October, sorry.
Yep.
It was part 1 of the Disability Royal Commission. Now, do you want to give us a bit of a 1-minute rundown on what you guys spoke about in that first session?
So basically, we just touched on 2 of the recommendations by the final report of the Royal Commission. One of them was in regards to education, trying to get students who were in special schools integrated into mainstream education. The review of the chair committee wanted to see that special schools phased out. They also touched on employment with people with disabilities. How the commission felt that people with disabilities should be paid equally and appropriately according to the award rate and to whatever job that they're able to do. The commission wanted to see those kind of workshops that are currently operating phased out as part of the integration process, trying to integrate people with disabilities into mainstream society.
Gotcha. Well, today's episode is more different. We're going to cover the main topic of the Royal Commission, which is the abuse of participants within the NDIS, or the history of the NDIS. The Disability Royal Commission was established in April 2019.
Yep.
And it was in response to the community concern about the widespread reports of violence against abuse, neglect, exploitation of people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Now, the goal of this commission was to investigate and address these matters.
That is correct.
Including the abuse within the NDIS itself. Okay? So, Brendon, have you had much exposure, discussions, collaborations, whatever, with anyone on this topic in the NDIS community in the last few years?
I haven't had much dealings with other participants who have obviously dealt with the Safeguards Commission. I can give you a personal experience, me having to actually make a complaint to the Safeguards Commission, and this was when so in January 2021, I contracted COVID-19 and I tested positive, and we did the right, me and my support workers did the right thing and informed everybody that I'd contracted. I'd logged my rat test through the computer to say that I tested positive, and then the response that I got from the still provider that was managing the property here at the time said that I actually had to leave because it was endangering other participants. Now, I didn't know what to do, so I rang and I made a complaint to the Safeguards Commission. And unfortunately, to this very day, I have not had a response from the Safeguards Commission regarding that complaint. So there are some issues currently going on with the Safeguards Commission in not responding to complaints appropriately and in a timely manner. Quite often, complaints are often being uninvestigated for quite some time after the incident has occurred. So I feel that there are a lot of issues going on within the Safeguards Commission, and I'm glad that the Royal Commission has kind of picked up on the abuse that's going on within the NDIS, and I would like to see a good collaboration between the recommendations from the Commission and, as you know, we're about to have the recommendations from the NDIS review, the 5-year review, come out. I'd like to see what they say in terms of the Safeguards Commission and what they're recommending, and hopefully they can be, between the two, there can be some good collaboration and good co-design. This is all pending if the government adopts the recommendations made by the two panels here. I want to see some collaboration and some good coming together, really good, and working out correct processes for investigating complaints in a timely manner and actually using a better triage system than what they currently have.
Gotcha. Now, I want to read an article which I sent to you this morning about a 3-year-old article, Brendon. It's called NDIS Watchdog is fielding nearly 100 allegations of abuse or neglect a week. So I'll read a few words here and then you tell me your thoughts. Australia's Disability Services Watchdog is fielding more than 100 allegations of abuse or neglect a week, while NDIS providers admitted restraining participants 6,000 times without proper authorisation in the first 3 months since the NDIS Commission's national expansion in 2020. The figures released by the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission also reveal that 531 incidents have been referred to police, demonstrating what advocates describe as the horrifying level of alleged abuse experienced by people with disabilities. This is 2020, by the way. Between 1 July and 30 September 2020, the Commission said it had received 8,595 reports of serious incidents within the scheme, including 6,694 reports of unauthorised restrictive practices, 1,236 reports of alleged abuse and neglect, including physical, verbal or financial abuse, 437 reports of known serious injury, including accidents. Brendon, what does restrictive practices mean?
So, restrictive practices means that I don't like that term, but I'll explain it. Restrictive practices is basically used on a participant if their behaviour or their outbursts become to the point where they're uncontrollable and they're at risk of harming themselves and harming others, such as support workers or other residents that may live within their home. I strongly don't agree with restrictive practices to a point because some of the practices that are used, and I don't know if you've seen this Four Corners.
I have seen it, yes.
Interview on the ABC. I think some of those practices that we use are totally disgusting and should have been banned a very, very long time ago. And I'm surprised that it took the media to pick up on those issues. We should get to a point where where the media shouldn't get involved. And this is where the Safeguards Commission comes in. This is their role. They are responsible for ensuring the safety of NDIS participants, especially those participants who cannot communicate for themselves. So this is a problem that is regularly occurring within the Safeguards Commission, and I hope I hope to God the NDIS review that's currently happening right now, I hope they actually make some kind of recommendation to strengthen the powers of the Safeguards Commission and give them more authority and give them what they need to ensure that the complaints are acted upon in like this instance on Four Corners that should have been triaged to the top. So complaints need to be acted appropriately according to what level of incident it is. Now, I don't understand why this was not picked up prior to it going on the TV.
Yep, very true. I want to read you something out from an article online, and it says, Royal Commission uncovers barbaric restraining practices against people with disability. This is a recent article here online on the website Pro Bono. People with disability are being strapped down and chemically castrated in group homes, the Royal Commission has heard. Melbourne University criminologist Dr. Claire Spivakowski told a commission hearing on Tuesday that barbaric restrictive practices against people with disability were legal and prevalent, especially in Victoria. These practices include chemical restraints, giving someone medication to make them more docile, and mechanical restraints to hold them down against their will. This medication might be used to, in essence, chemically castrate someone, lower their libido. There's mechanical restraint, so being restrained with straps and other sort of mechanisms to chairs, for example, to beds. There's physical restraint using someone's body against someone else's body, and there is seclusion as well. So not very nice stuff at all.
No, it's not. When you talk about chemical castration, that's effectively drugging someone so that you can control them, and so that they can be controlled and well behaved for the support worker on duty. Now, I understand that sometimes it can be difficult dealing with people with disabilities with challenging behaviours, but at the end of the day, it's their disability that's causing this. It's not them themselves. Why should they be punished, and why should they be drugged just to make it easier on the support staff and the other people around them? To me, that is barbaric, and that is totally wrong. And using restraint. Why are you restraining somebody? Why are you locking them down because of something they cannot control themselves? It's outrageous.
Exactly.
Absolutely outrageous and irresponsible of the providers that are allowed to do this.
And not just that, Brendon, but also, and let me read some more information from this article. In this week's Royal Commission here in Melbourne is examining the experiences of people with disability in group homes, which are a form of supported accommodation for up to 6 people. The hearing heard stories of people with disability experiencing sexual violence and abuse in these homes. People with disability and their families told the Commission they felt unsafe in group homes and had little control over their lives.
Well, you said it right there. Group homes do exactly that. They limit control to the participant, to the person with the disability, and that then creates a behaviour from the person with the disability because they're not allowed to do what they want and when they want, because they have to consider everybody else living in the home. Now, one of the recommendations by the Royal Commission was to potentially, abolish group homes. Only 3, though, of the commissioners made that recommendation. The other 3 were kind of on the fence about it. But group home sexual abuse, it was happening like in the 70s and 80s, back when, there wasn't really much regulation at all around the disability services, and a lot of the times it was, swept under the carpet or ignored. I think there needs to be some kind of systemic change in the way people in disabilities where they live. I mean, we have like SDA now, but those that don't have NDIS, the state governments need to take a bit of responsibility and actually step up to the plate. I know because each state looks after their own disability centers. However, I did see a recommendation by the Commission that a National Disability Commission be formed and a rewrite of the they have a National Disability Act and a special minister be appointed within the federal government for disabilities services separate to the NDIS. I strongly think that we all need to play a big role here, and we need to stop these providers from doing this sort of stuff. We need to have better regulations for providers. We need to do more thorough background checks on providers, and this is the role that the Commission is supposed to be providing. The Safeguards Commission is supposed to be providing to the NDIS community. But yeah, there needs to be more regulation, more thorough background checks, like providers giving dodgy paperwork to say that they're qualified is absolutely absurd. Like, how is this even allowed to happen? So I strongly want to see a much more stringent check on providers when they register to become providers, especially to those participants living in shared accommodation settings where a family might not be present as much and the participant can't communicate for themselves. I know one service provider recently introduced a visitors program where it was made up of, so this is CPL, Choice, Passion, Life. They have this visitors program where they have a group of people, and that's usually made up of families of participants living in those homes or even people of their own peers, where they go in once a week or once a fortnight to regularly check on these people living in those homes, and they then report back to CPL to, yes, that this is happening and the proper policy is being adhered to and the participant is happy. I would like to see that kind of approach adopted in the housing. It's really important, and families and support networks and loved ones would be much more at ease knowing that their family member with a disability is looked after properly and cared for in a safe manner that doesn't result in them being tied up or chemically castrated. It's just not right. It's not fair at all.
Totally agree. A lot of things happening in the marketplace, in the community, from a care perspective, which is not legitimate, I guess, or not legal.
Yeah.
And restrictive practices is one of those things. Now, Brendon, I want to talk to you about something I came across in Sydney 3 weeks ago. And you're going to be shocked with what I'm about to tell you. Okay?
Yep.
So I met a provider, an SDA provider, who's also a developer builder in Sydney, in Liverpool. Caught up for coffee. We're talking about SDA, or talking about NDIS stuff, about the Royal Commission. And he was telling me some of the stuff happening in the local area, in Fairfield, Liverpool, those areas in Sydney. And let me just paint a picture for you. Imagine a person, an uncle, an auntie, or even a parent, going up to a provider and saying to a still provider, hey, I have a child here, a young adult here, a participant in NDIS with $500,000 funding. What will you pay me if I give my family member over to you to take over as a still provider? Sometimes it's 10%, sometimes 20%. It could even be as high as 50% of the $500,000 funding. And so the first month goes by, we are paid $20,000 on the table, cash. Second month goes by, another $20,000. on the table. And third month comes along, and then the provider goes, you know what? I'm not going to pay you any more money until you sign this document. It's a guardianship form. You sign this form, and I'll pay you to continue paying. So he signs the form as a guardian, transfer over to the silk provider, and then they stop paying. Now, fast forward a few more months. This is an actual fact. Participant rocks up, goes to church, a mass. At the end of the church or mass, everyone's leaving, and the priest and my friend walk up to the participant and says, what are you doing here? What are you waiting here? And the participant says, I don't want to go home. I'm staying here. I don't want to go home. My carer's coming soon. I don't want to go home at all. And it's like, why? Well, what's going on? Oh, they're abusing me at home. They're abusing me at home. I don't want to go home anymore. Carer rocks up. The priest and my friend says, mate, you can't. We call the police. The police come. The police make the carer stay outside while they're investigating this matter. The boss, or the care provider comes along and they wait outside as well. Police can't do anything about it because this guardianship signed over to the silk provider, all right? And they're milking their funding. So it's back and forth, police. And NDIS says, we're not getting involved because the guardian is looking after them. So the police are saying, no, we're not part of this. The NDIS is saying, we're not part of this. It's all legit. The family member who signed them over is like, whatever, it's all signed over. No one is looking after this participant. The police won't get involved, the NDIS won't get involved. So the priest forcibly puts him into a hospital for the time being. The next week, another participant rocks up to the church. Same story, same provider, abuse. And police won't get involved? Nope, it's in this matter. And NDIS won't get involved? Nope, it's a guardianship matter. And lo and behold, this provider is walking on the streets, giving their cards out to the public. If you have anyone who's disabled, come refer them to me. Stand in the front, untouchable. Police can't touch her, and NDIS can't touch her because she's playing by the rules. And this is happening plentiful in Sydney, where people are selling off their family members as a commodity to extract funding out of NDIS.
This is so absurd. I can't even begin to imagine that this is happening in this country. My first question is, this is an NDIS participant, part of the scheme. Why is the NDIS not protecting this participant? Where is the Safeguards Commission in all of this? I do not understand why they have not stepped in, because yet these two of potentially more participants are on the NDIS. Therefore, the NDIS is then responsible to ensure the safety of those participants. Shame on the NDIS for not stepping in. Shame on the Safeguards Commission for not acting appropriately. You can't be passing the buck here. These are participants, vulnerable people who need assistance. And yet, why are the families, most importantly, not being charged for selling they're basically selling off their family members? That's against the law. It is fraud. I am completely shocked and disgusted by this, Minh. This is, I could not, you don't know how outraged I am right now by hearing this story. There are so many people that are responsible for these people, but yet they're not taking the responsibility, meaning the participant is suffering.
And this is happening right now in Sydney. Right now. Not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago. This is right now.
Disgusting. I wish I could name the provider, because that provider should have their registration struck off from the NDIS, and they should never be allowed to provide services to NDIS participants ever again. That is absolutely disgusting and disgraceful, and I hope that one day someone finds that, names the provider and shames them. Shame on them, shame on the NDIS, and shame on the Commission for not stepping in.
But you know what, Brendon? If someone did make a complaint, do you really think the NDIS, the Safeguard Commission, is going to actually follow up on the complaint?
Of course not, because the Safeguard Commission is not equipped enough. I mean, you have to look at the current, like the article from 3 years ago. They have had such a high staff turnover rate. The public out of all the government departments, that department has the highest dissatisfaction rate in all of the country. It's even worse than Centrelink. I do not understand why the Safeguards Commission has not been given more powers and more responsibility to act faster and quicker so situations like this don't occur ever again. It's unacceptable and it's inappropriate. I'm outraged, Minh. I've done so many podcasts with you lately, but this one this part infuriates me, and it makes me so mad because here I am advocating for the rights of NDIS participants, and it breaks my heart. It really does that this disgusting behaviour is allowed to occur and is still occurring, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. I'm speechless and I'm disgusted.
Well, I hope there's a whistleblower phone number for people to make calls to and make complaints to and actually get followed up on, because I've mentioned in another podcast that last year, 2022, there were over 16,000 complaints to the NDIS. From that, there was only 90 people banned as from being a registered provider any further. And from the 16,000 complaints, there were only 10 infringement fines. 10.
10.
Out of 16,000 complaints. So the NDIS could only fine 10 people. That's it.
And how much that is that infringement fine? Do we know?
I have no idea.
I bet you it would be way less than what they've been receiving in kickbacks from.
And for sure. Because if you look, 90 banned, 10 infringements. 10 infringements probably $400, $500, probably.
Yep.
You know, otherwise they'll be banned, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A slap on the wrist is a couple $100. That's all it is.
I honestly believe if you are a provider and you are investigated for causing harm to a participant or an injury to a participant, if you are found guilty, you shouldn't be fined. You should have your NDIS approval taken off you, and you should never be allowed to practice in the disability sector ever again. That is just.
But Brendon, there's a problem here. There are 160,000 unregistered providers in Australia. 160,000. So even if you were banned already as a registered provider, it's quite easy to set up a new company.
You can set up a new business.
But no one know. Out a different name, different family member, easy.
But this is where better regulation needs to come in effect. This is something that I hope the review committee picks up on, that there needs to be better regulation for allowing providers they should become registered. There needs to be something that makes them go before they're allowed to become a provider, even if it's mandatory to become a registered provider. I mean, surely something here, some co-design of some legislation or something to ensure that these unregistered providers are never allowed to practice again, and they're not allowed to use a different name, because if they are, they must give the previous name of the company that they were providing under. There needs to be further background checks. And let me tell you something for nothing, Lynn. I know, for example, independent support workers, this is a prime example of how bad the regulation is. Independent support workers who apply for the National Disability Insurance Screening Card, that's the yellow card that everybody gets when the support workers get when they provide services. Independent support workers create their own Proda account, they then apply, but then they go in and they have to approve themselves. There's no background check on that. The sole trader, the applicant, approves their own screening card. How is that?
No way. Are you serious?
I'm 100% serious. I've got 3 independent support workers currently that have just recently had their yellow cards approved, and they had to approve it themselves.
Wow.
And my support worker Darcy touched on this point when I did the last podcast with independent support workers. Independent support workers must approve their own screening card application. There's no other background check at all.
Wow.
That's how easy it is.
Well, when you have a system that has automated payments where providers and carers can submit their invoices in via plan manager or directly to Proda, and it gets paid automatically by the system, automatically with no checks at all, no wonder the system is just rife with overcharge and fraudulent claims and criminal activities, obviously.
Do you think with the introduction of PACE that would change?
Well, to be honest, I don't understand PACE. What is that PACE all about? Tell me.
So PACE, okay, so currently before PACE, when the NDIS rolled out, they were using, so when your plan, when you go for a review or you apply to be on the NDIS and you meet with your planner, the CRM that the NDIA used was based off the Centrelink CRM that they use. That's why when you log in through MyGov and you link your NDIS to your MyGov, that's how that was created. So the old CRM was poorly, it couldn't cope with the amount of influx people going on the NDIS, because it also covers Centrelink as well. PACE is their new CRM. So when you go for a plan review now, you will be able to see the background building part of your plan as well. You'll be able to check the progress of how your plan is going. My understanding is that there will be some kind of live action thing that you can, and if there's something that you don't think that the planner is doing right in building your plan, you can actually, send an email or a message through to the planner via their system, and you can have a conversation about that. So it gives participants more of an understanding of how their plans are built and the length of time it takes to build plans. It's supposed to make the process a lot faster and streamline it a lot better. And my understanding last time I heard that PACE was not going to be a part of MyGov. It's going to be something completely separate. So you won't need to log into MyGov to access your NDIS, which I think in a way is kind of a good thing. But that's what PACE is. It's a CRM that basically builds a plan. You can see your portal. You can see how your plan's being built, and it's your plan is actually it's live. It's live, so you can see invoices get processed as they happen, basically.
Well, at least that gives participants the opportunity to see what's being processed out of their account, because too many times the last few years, there's too many stories about how participants say their accounts are being drained and not knowing what's happened to it. Now, listen, I want to bring up a story that you gave me about 2 months ago. I went to your apartment for your birthday, and you told me and your friends, your workers who were there, about the story that you read online about another participant. And let me rehash the story myself, and if there's anything missing, you let me know. You told me that there was an article you read online about a participant who was being cared for by a support worker. She then became his plan manager, and then became his support worker, support coordinator, and then moved him into her house and became his landlord. So by being the landlord and the support coordinator and the plan manager and the support worker, she was able to get 4 different income streams from this participant's funding, and basically drained his account to zero. And at the end of this, kicked him out on the road, on the street, homeless.
So basically, the participant hired this person as a support worker, then she became a support coordinator, and then moved her into a home, and then they had a massive falling out. While this was all going on, she was draining the participants' funds like never before, and then when she got kicked out and signed up to to wherever she was going. So that provider found that there was no funds available for her, and then had to go back to the NDIS and ask for a review. I don't know anything further on that, but if that stuff is continuing to happen, or well, we know it's happened, but if it continues, something needs to be done about this sort of.
This is financial abuse.
Yeah,
Purely financial abuse.
And it's called double dipping in a way, because like you said, you're taking 4 lots of funding because you're the landlord, you're the support worker, support coordinator. You're double dipping in funds. Now that should not be allowed to happen. I know that when we talk in SDA land, and we talked about SIL provider and the SDA provider being the one, that's also double dipping. And I know that we're now moving away from the SDA provider and the SIL provider being the one. They have to be separate. The same should be for support workers, support coordinators, and whatever else. There should be no opportunity given to any provider, whatever your capacity is with that participant, to take more than what you're actually there to do, basically.
Brendon, I totally agree with you, but as there's an old saying in life, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, right? And the word choice of control is the sword.
Yeah, but this is where the participant didn't have the choice or the control. The provider just took the money and
exactly.
But what I was going to say there is, this is where the NDIS review needs to really look at the legislation in terms of that area, and make recommendation that the legislation be changed so that providers can't do that. And this is something that the government of the day, whoever the government of the day will be when they actually implement all these new regulations, if they adopt them, this is something that the government needs to consider when redesigning, I guess, the NDIS Act and the legislation that goes with it. Sorry, Min, your point?
Okay, my point is this. When you have 160,000 unregistered providers in the system compared to 20,000 registered providers, and when you have all these independent support workers who are unregistered working with these unregistered providers, there's no accountability because they're not accountable to the NDIA. I mean, yes, they should be working by a code of conduct, the NDIS code of conduct, yes, but are they really? Those ones who are slipping through the system, they're slipping through the system and they're taking advantage of vulnerable people who don't know any better and being encouraged to move over here because our house is better and we'll give you more lollies and a TV as well, right? And they're being picked off one by one. These are vulnerable people who have no family supports, and the sword being the choice control, because that's the NDIS's way of saying we'll turn a blind eye because their choice of control, really. I mean, the system's flawed. It's flawed.
I definitely do not disagree with your comment there. My situation is, yes, all my guys are all my support workers are independent. However, my support workers, when they became independent, they came from a provider. So I was with the provider, and they took them across. But again, I'm very different to thousands of other participants out there who may not know how to do that, like start that process of.
Nor do they have a voice.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people have a voice out there. Yeah,
exactly. And I've had conversations with people because they ask me about how I do my supports and how it works for me, and I said I'm lucky because I can actually communicate and advocate what I want. So it's about teaching participants and educating them about how to negotiate with the support worker if you want to move away from a provider to an independent style of support work.
Well, let's let's cover that, Brendon. Let's leave that topic for another day when you and me talk about the concept of independent support worker and not having a civil provider in your life. That's a great topic to cover, and I'd love to do it some other time. But this topic today is about the Disability Royal Commission. I want to wrap it up, but what are your final thoughts and feedback about these 222 recommendations and the fact that you and we've ordered the books? So by the way, everyone listening, you can actually order the 20 kilos of books for free of Part A, Part B to be delivered for free to your door. If you log on to the Disability Royal Commission, we've ordered it ourselves as well as you, for sure.
I think we should put the link on our website so that people can go and order it if they want to. What do you reckon?
Yeah, yes. It's a lot of print, and it'll be delivered around November, late November, I think, middle of November when the delivery will be placed. Yeah, because
the mild, they've had to do a refresh. Yeah, you can order it. Sorry, Minh, continue what you were saying.
So, any final words of feedback or advice from you?
Look, I hope that we see a real systemic change, both from the recommendations of the Royal Commission and the recommendations from the NDIS review. Those are due to come out at the end of this month, fingers crossed. Abuse needs to stop in this sector. There's no explanation. It's not acceptable to be abusing our vulnerable people with disabilities. These people put their trust in us as providers to ensure that we are safe and that we are cared for. The same goes with their family members. They put their trust in us, and we have to hold up to that standard. And I really, really hope that after all this and all the recommendations come in and the legislation's all worked out and everything, we hope goes according to plan. I hope that it's a better life for people with disabilities. Especially, I want to see smiles on faces of the ones that have been abused, just because to know that it is now over and that the real change is happening and that they can feel safe again. And safety is paramount, and feeling secure. There are times where I've been alone and I've felt vulnerable, going out somewhere and I don't feel safe. So I do, and there's someone with a disability who may not be able to defend themselves properly. It's a scary concept, being selfless and not able to defend yourself. So I really hope that people have listened, the government have listened, providers are listening, and that abuse in disability settings stops, and that there needs to be some serious penalties for providers who continue to create that behaviour in this environment, because it is not acceptable, it is not appropriate, and it's disgusting, and it needs to stop, and it needs to stop now.
Thank you, Brendon. We will definitely have to do a follow-up podcast to this topic for once they implement these changes later in the next month or 2 months, I guess. We'll see.
Well, it depends what they adopt to. The government may not adopt any of these, but I feel, given that it is Labor and NDIS is a Labor initiative, I think you will find all the recommendations will be adopted, and you'll probably see legislation introduced into the Parliament, if not slightly before Christmas, just after.
Brendon, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode next few weeks on a different topic, okay?
Thank you for having me again, and stay safe, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.